Thank you for tuning in to the Greater Kokomo Chamber and Greater Kokomo Alliance's first legislative event of 2022. My name is Karen McLean. I am with NIPSCO Public Affairs and Economic Development. I'm honored to be here today serving as moderator, and NIPSCO is also proud to be the sponsor for the 2022 legislative series. Today, we'll hear about important legislation issues impacting businesses and residents of Howard County. And now please join me in welcoming our state legislators that are part of our panel today. Senator Jim Buck, Representative Mike Karickhoff, and Representative Heath VanNatter. Senator Stacy Donato sends her regrets that she cannot attend today. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us. The panel will be in 3 segments. In the first, we invite our legislators to give a brief 2 to 3 minute synopsis on the bills they are working on. In the second segment, I will be asking the legislators questions compiled by the Alliance. In the third segment, we will accept questions from the audience through the chat box option and via Facebook Live and the Q&A in the Zoom webinar. So for the first segment, let's begin with the legislators taking a few minutes to discuss the bills they're working on and any issues occurring at the state capitol. And I'll call on you for this portion. So Senator Buck, we'll begin with you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate getting to be with you. I know it takes a lot to put these on, but thanks to your sponsors for having us. We do miss getting to meet in person with people, but it's good to be able to talk with one another. Being a short session, things are going pretty hectic. We've got a number of bills that we're working on. I chair local government, and I have over 30 bills this short session, which a lot of times I don't have that much, even a long session. But just a few of the bills I'm working on. One is Senate Bill 29, has to do with eminent domain. I've been thinking about this legislation for a number of years. I think what's transpired along 31 has kind of brought that to the forefront. And so what this does, it sets a floor of the properties that will be taken at 120%. That comes from really looking back on what Honda did years ago when they were requiring property for their plant. They paid 120%. If we can do eminent domain at 120%, I think it will cut down on litigation. NDOT and through federal funds, they pay relocation costs. We don't do that. So if your property is taken through eminent domain, you get an appraised value of it, but you have attorney fees if you want to challenge it. I think this will save money on both sides through litigation, and it will help the relocated people pay for some of that expense. The other bill is 283, has to do with public notices. Last year, we passed kind of a beginner of it, where if you had multiples of 3 or more, one of those you could put on your local internet. This year, what it does, it opens up as a May provision. You can do all of them on the internet if you choose. And so we're hoping that this will work. Even those that have what's been called the Obama phone free, you can assess it now. But so we're seeing what's happened with that. The other one that I'll discuss is Senate Concurrent Resolution 2. That has to do with all the chatter from Washington about changing the makeup of our Supreme Court. The states have the right, as after all, we've created the federal government. And part of our problem, the states have not communicated well with the federal government. After the 17th Amendment that took away our right as legislators to appoint the US Senator, we've seen the growth and power of the federal government. Only one other time was the court attempted to be what's called packed, and they were doing that by the age of the Supreme Court justice. If they were 70 or 75, I forget which, they could appoint another one. Well, that could have gotten the court clear up to 15. Now they're talking about increasing it to 13 by 4. Most of the states that I talk to don't want to see that happen. Even former Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg thought that was a dumb idea. And so we've passed that out of the Senate. We're sending that over to the House as a kind of a baby step. 26 of 27 amendments have been done this way. And we hope that this will give Indiana a chance to let the federal legislators know how we feel. But there are a number of others, but maybe we'll get to those later. Thanks again for having us.
Thank you, Senator Buck. Representative Karickhoff.
Good afternoon. I've got several bills I'm working on. I have a bill dealing with the opioid settlement. A number of communities opted out of the master settlement that attorney generals across the country had negotiated. We're trying to find a path for those subdivisions that had opted out to get back in. So that's taking a good bit of my time. That bill will be down on the House floor next week, and we'll the goal is to get it in a spot where we can send it to our colleagues in the Senate and see if we can't get more local units of government to participate in that master settlement. I think we're making some progress. I have another bill that deals with Medicaid reimbursement in schools. I worked a companion bill with Senator Zay last year, and in the rush of conference committees down the stretch, some language got inadvertently left out. And so I have a bill that restores the language that was in a bill that FSSA supports that will allow us to get Medicaid reimbursement for certain services in our public schools. And that bill is headed down to the House floor. I also have a bill that deals with it closes a loophole with respect to child pornography. In Indiana, you have to have a victim, and the victim is the child in the photograph. And the technology has reached a point now where they can make photoreal cartoons, and they're not real children engaged in these pornographic photographs. And so we have kind of closed that loophole by using the obscenity statutes. We got it out of committee. It's on the House floor right now, and we're working on the ways to advance that bill. And it was brought to me by the prosecutor and sheriffs and police here in Howard County, and look forward to seeing that bill move forward. Obviously, we have a lot of interest in tax cuts and how we're going to handle our surpluses. A lot of discussion about that, a lot of concern from local officials how business personal property tax will be affected by that. And this legislative delegation understands the impact to our communities, and we're paying very close attention to that bill as it works its way through the process. Like Senator Buck said, it's a short session. Things go pretty quick right now. It will be interesting to see where things land down the stretch. There's going to be a lot of stuff, quite frankly, die on the vine, because second reading deadline, committee report deadline is next Tuesday. Second reading deadline, I think, is Thursday. And so a lot of stuff's going to, we had a lot of conversations over the summer, how we're going to get stuff across the finish line. So those are the things that occupy a good deal of my time.
Thank you, Representative Karickhoff. And Representative VanNatter. You're on mute.
Sorry. Good afternoon. I'm Heath VanNatter. I represent House District 38, which is portions of Howard, Clinton, Carroll, and Cass counties. While I'm on that subject, we went in last fall and passed redistricting. So the new House District 38 will be quite a bit different. I will have it'll represent portions of Howard, Clinton, Carroll, Cass, Tippecanoe, and it has all of Tipton County. So quite a bit different. I chair the House Employment, Labor, and Pensions Committee, and that has been a very active committee this year. We heard House Bill 1001, which is the vaccine employer mandate bill. We had a committee hearing a little ahead of schedule. We did a December committee hearing and took almost 8 hours of testimony. So that bill has since moved out of the House and onto the Senate. One of the bills that I personally sponsored or authored is House Bill 1174. It's making coroners first responders. So currently, if a coroner is called to the scene of an accident where there's a death, they're working side by side with law enforcement, and somebody hits both of them with a car, kills them both. Coroners are not eligible for death benefits. So this bill would add them to the first responder list and give them death benefits. It passed out of the Veterans Affairs Committee, got recommitted to Ways and Means. When it got sent to Ways and Means, they stripped out the death benefit portion. So it's on to the House floor now, but I've got some work to do to get it back in its original form. We'll have to work on that as it moves through the process. There was 866 bills filed this session. As Mike and Jim said, things are moving quick. I would expect probably 200 or less of those bills will become law. So we got a lot of work left to do in a short period of time. So far, we've passed 25 bills out of the House, so those are moved on to the Senate. So those are some of the issues that I'm working on, and I'll just save time for some of your questions.
Thank you, Representative VanNatter. And now we'll move on to the Alliance questions. So just as we do in the live legislation events, I'll ask the questions, and then whoever would like to respond, please feel free to share. The first question is, what can we expect from this session of the General Assembly that will be helpful or hurtful to Indiana employees? Whoever would like to start.
Well, I'll start. Helpful is something we've always paid attention to. Three things that really hurt employers is regulation, litigation, and taxation. And Indiana's always been one of the leaders in trying to shrink that back. And this session, I think you're hearing some of the regulatory requirements that are being filtered down from the federal government, even from the executive side, that we're trying to rectify to minimize impact on employers. From the litigation side, I don't see anything that's coming down at this point, but regulatory process, we're trying to keep a close eye on that. But Indiana is a growing state. We had a net positive growth in population. So we keep striving to keep our cost of living low, which helps Hoosier dollars go far. So all in all, we're doing quite well. The worst thing we could do is raise taxes on people. That's harmful to the employer. But we're really, I know you've got another question on it, but we're really trying to free up the workforce for our economy.
Anything else to add?
No, I think you'll get some more of it from the other two.
I mean, the specific proposal with respect to tax cuts, if Hoosiers have more money in their pocket, they're likely to spend that money for goods and services, and that's good for business. We're the only state that uses this double direct test for sales tax right now, and we're going to kind of come into conformity, hopefully, and use a single direct methodology, which business will like. Everybody's going to get the automatic taxpayer refund. I think the fact that we were able to invest so substantially in last budget in K-12 education, and we did it in a way that is sustainable. That wasn't a 2-year deal and we're going to back it off. That's we still have our $300 million reserve dedicated for K-12. We put the money out there because we are in a strong fiscal position, and we took the money we got for COVID relief and we used it to pay down debt. We used it judiciously for reimbursing local political subdivisions that had expenses due to COVID. And so I think that strong financial position is going to help employees, employers, and our general population. Obviously, training the workforce is a huge consideration. And the Ready Grants, what we're doing with the Ready Grants is the fact that the private sector is investing as heavily in Ready Grants across our state demonstrates that public-private partnership that we had a little success with a few years ago, and now we are amplifying that success. And quite frankly, Howard County was a leader in our region in the Ready Grant, and it's going to make a big impact in our region.
I'll just add to what Mike said about individual tax cut for state taxes is being cut by 7%. It's going from 3.23 to 3%. That's more money in Hoosiers' pockets to save or spend or spend on their kids' education. So that's a good thing for everybody.
Thank you. Our next question: what actions can the General Assembly take to help address Indiana's workforce availability issues? Whoever would like to begin.
I'll start. One of the things we've been doing, we've been channeling a lot of money into education. Indiana has some of the greatest schools and universities in the country, but we've got to get these young people trained not only in education, but through different vocational occupations. We're in short need of a shortage, I should say, of skilled tradespeople in all trades. And through Ivy Tech and others, we're filling that gap. But it's been touched on a couple times now, the cost of living. The hardest thing that's happening in the federal government right now is this cost of living that's climbing. Did a survey the other day, and a dollar in 1970 is worth 15 cents today. A dollar in 2020 is worth 62 cents today. What makes it very harmful right now, because of everything spiking, there's a lot of this funny money coming into all of our states. And we've got to be careful as to whether or not employees are even going to go back to work. One of the biggest complaints I've heard from employers and employees is saying, you know, I could make more money staying home. And that's just human nature. If we get paid to stay home and make more money at it, they're going to do it. And so employers, we just had an employer talk to me day before yesterday, had a young man come in to want to work. And he was saying, I need $20 an hour. And if I don't get $20 an hour, then I'm not interested. Well, some of these employers can't do that. So we have to, I'm hoping this tax cut that will help minimize some of the impact from the cost of living that's being borne down on all of us, including the employer, as what's happening in the federal government. You can't keep digitizing money and not expect an inflationary or a cost of living. So we're hopeful that we can help employers through two things: lowering the state income tax and being able to make sure that our schools and infrastructure, candidly, are properly funded.
I might just add a little bit to that. You know, we learned some things with COVID with respect to the workforce. You know, we made the ability to transfer licenses for certain professions between states easier, simpler. We just passed a bill recently that kind of changed the ratio for full-time and part-time faculty in the nursing profession. You know, we've heard a lot about education and teacher shortages, and we've tried to address that with grants and scholarships to pay for education. House Bill 103 tries to address the nursing shortage. You know, we've done stuff with telemedicine, and thank God we did that telemedicine stuff before the pandemic hit. We already had a framework and a structure in place to kind of help rural Indiana that doesn't have the same access to healthcare that we have. So I think our being proactive on some of the technology uses, expanding broadband will help employers, will help educators be able to lift up the entire workforce. But House Bill 103, you can look at the particulars. It is really targeting nursing and the nurses shortfall. And the longer I've been in and I've looked at this, I mean, the baby boomers are retiring. They talk about the average age of an RN is 50. You know, if you look at our K-12 school educators, it's not a bell curve of seniority. There's a lot of people that have taught for many years, and they're going to retire, and we're going to lose a lot of valuable experience there. Welders, you can't find enough welders. I mean, law enforcement, look at the crisis in law enforcement to get police officers. This is across all job sectors. And I think, quite frankly, some of it has to do with baby boomers retiring and leaving the workforce. So it's about education, it's about opportunity, and kind of selectively targeting where you can direct state dollars to hit those areas that have the greatest need.
Thank you. The next question. Please provide an overview of House Bill 1082 that would lower the minimum valuation floor for depreciable personal property tax from 30% to 15%. What impact would this legislation have on local taxing units?
I'll just add, that bill has not received a hearing, and I just pulled up, it got assigned to Ways and Means, and I pulled up the calendar for this week, which this is the last week for bills to be heard, and it's not on the calendar at all this week. So it doesn't appear that particular bill is going to move. That doesn't mean that the language won't end up somewhere else, but it's not going to move in that bill, it doesn't look like.
Thank you, Representative VanNatter. We'll move to the next question then. What can the General Assembly do to ensure that US 31 continues to receive the required investments to take it to freeway standards?
Well, 31 is going to take a long time. And I think the state has done a nice job taking the high exchange areas where lots of interchanges and making those exchange free. I think INDOT's done a great job with their strategy of kind of cherry picking the low hanging fruit where there are individual access points from, you know, farm properties that directly access 31. It's going to take a long time. The coalition needs to do a good job with, quite frankly, Fulton and Marshall counties. Even in Miami County, there's a lot of resistance to even incrementally stair-stepping improvements. So it's a tall order. The 31 coalition has a strategy to work with the state. What can we do locally? When we need to support the coalition and the strategies that they're using to realistically advance that continued goal. They made a lot of progress, but just the land acquisition costs alone on a lot of the onesie twosies is really going to push this thing out for decades. I think, you know, you need to hit the big exchanges in Fulton, Marshall, and Miami counties, just like the strategy's been all along, and then continue the onesie twosies. That's really about all we can do. Senator Buck, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, 31 for a number of years has been a problem north to south. But the funding that we provided, I think it's been 2 budgets ago when we, maybe even 3 now, when we had the 10-cent fee put into place, has helped fund Indiana's roads better than any other state. And on 31, you're seeing a lot, but we're doing a great deal in other areas with that money, whether it's Interstate 70, 65, or 69. But the money that's for 31, there's quite a revolt against J-turns. J-turns are cheap, but most of us don't feel those are that safe of an environment. A lot of the areas on 31, they're trying to close off some of the east-west access by putting cul-de-sacs on them. And then in some areas, they're putting an overpass with no connectivity. Now, that's all well and good until you get to public safety. But what I've been attempting to do for the last couple of years is talk to locals about being able to have the state put in their overpass, because that usually runs around $7 million for an overpass, depending on where it's at. But then rather than a full interchange, the locals can institute what's called a diamond structure. They can do it with their own money. And one of the things that Representative Cook and I have been working with NDOT, we can't do anything this year because it's not a budget year, but we're going to try to figure out a way of helping the state and the locals institute some of these major interchanges by making them into a diamond. They're much cheaper. They accomplish the same purpose. You can do them on opposite corners. You don't have to have all four corners. So the land acquisition is pretty cheap. But it's trying to work with the 31 Coalition. And by the way, that's quite a stellar group. They've worked very hard in keeping 31 more of a freeway. But NDOT has been trying to figure out how can they allocate these dollars on 31. And I think you'll be pleased to know every legislator that touches 31 has been pretty active with NDOT. And we're trying to make sure that public safety still has access. They still get within their timeline. Economic development's not harmed. You're seeing, I think we've only got between here and Indianapolis just a couple lights left. And the one down at what's old 47 in Hamilton County, that's being worked on. The overpass for the railroad in Tipton County is being worked on. So 31, good to say, but sad to say at the same time. There's going to be a lot of work on that, but it's going to also cause all of us that use it from here to Indy a lot of pain. But once it's done, I think everybody's going to be quite pleased.
Thank you. The next question, what is the legislative intent of House Bill 1134, Education Matters, and do you expect the bill to be taken up in the Senate?
I'm not on the education committee. It's not been to the floor yet. I can tell you that the genesis of the bill really is a result of parents having their children in their own homes and seeing online education and really looking at the curricula that's being advanced. I think there were across the state parents that reached out to school corporations and school boards to have input. They felt shut out. I'm not suggesting that happened everywhere, but it certainly happened some places. The national media talking a lot about CRT shined a light on a problem that, quite frankly, I don't believe exists in Indiana, but it's about perception. So you kind of have this perfect storm of parents for the first time seeing what their children are learning in schools. You have parents that want to be engaged and involved, not feeling that they're being listened to, and you have this national narrative. So with those, kind of that perfect storm, there was a bill in the Senate that has since died, and Representative Cook, a former superintendent who, quite frankly, was quite well respected in education communities, is authoring this bill. Sadly, he couldn't be here today. His father recently passed away. I think that the funeral is today, but I know Representative Cook has tried to find a place that values parental engagement and input both in the curricula and with the school board. And so what the Senate's going to do with it, what we're going to do with it in the House, we'll see, but it's a conversation that deserves to happen. And I'm kind of surprised. I've not got a lot of pushback, but people seem to forget all the pushback we got over the summer about online learning. And, so what happened is kind of had this storm of change. And I would hope that people would want as much parental involvement as possible. And the more we have engaged in the curricula and the school board, the better. But we'll see how that moves forward. And I get, we don't want to, overregulate. We don't want to give unfunded mandates, but we want to empower parents and students the best way we can. So again, I've not seen it, not heard any floor debate on it, just kind of have tangentially, I think I've received 44 form emails about it. So I know it's a concern.
All right, we'll move on to the last. Oh, go ahead,
If
Senator
I
Bell.
can, we haven't gotten that. The discussion that was in the Senate, like Representative Karickhoff said, that bill seems to have found a different process here. But the thing, we had a good group of Howard County teachers come to the State House this week, and we discussed some of that. But what I don't want to be lost is that everybody that receives a government check, a payday from any quarter, whether it's a municipality, school corporation, we as legislators, we are servants of the public. And what I think has happened this last year, the public has finally found their voice. A voice that they are saying, look, we're paying the bill. You people work for us. And in many circles, sad to say, those individuals that are, in my view, the boss, have been treated less than even a second-class city. And that has sent off a nationwide revolt against what they see happening in our schools. And whether all of that's true or not is immaterial. These people, when they go to a school board meeting, they expect to be heard. They don't expect to be carted out in cuffs. They don't expect the school board to tell them to sit down and shut up. They don't expect their kids to go to a class where the material is pure indoctrination. Whether CRT is being taught here or not, there's versions of education in various schools that's percolating up, whether the school boards are aware of it or not. But believe me, it's caught the ear of legislators across the country. And Representative Karickhoff is exactly right. With all of this Zoom education, so to speak, parents have been watching what their kids are being taught, and they've not liked it. So they've gone to these school boards and they're trying to say, wait a minute, we're paying the bill. But what it has done, it's woken parents up to the various forms of education, whether it's a conventional public school, whether it's a public charter school, homeschool, parochial school, whatever the other system may be. So it's like everything else, it's competitive. Anybody that's receiving a government check, whatever job it is, we're needing to be competitive. The way you're competitive is to listen to the people that's issuing you the check, the taxpayer.
Thank you. The last question from the Alliance. How do you view Indiana's overall fiscal health in context with the impact of COVID?
Well, I don't know whether I'm the most recent person to have gotten it. It was early last month. But our healthcare workers are overworked. I can't see how the state or our locals can anymore overemphasize the need to take preventative measures. If you're going to be in the mindset to get vaccinated, get vaccinated. As doctors have been telling me, you can get the vaccination and the boosters all you want. But some of these variances, you're going to catch it anyway. And so the feds are altering it as to whether you need to be quarantined for 14 days, and it was 10 days. Now, in some cases, it's 5. In other cases, they're saying you don't even need to. So I think there's a lot of confusion, but between the executive branch and the legislature, we're trying to set a standard that everybody can understand. We're going to get through this. We're trying to self-help. Our tests are slow, but I can tell you our healthcare workers, when we went through the hospital in one day on that particular Saturday, locally here, they had already run through 79 people with COVID. And the ER room, if you wanted to catch COVID, just go in there with your spouse or child or whatever. No social distancing because they don't have the space. So we're trying to make sure the funds from the federal government gets here, that we don't do anything to stymie it. But the overall health, I think some pockets are stressful, but by and large, we're listening to any and all efforts approached us to try to help minimize this. Hopefully they're correct. We'll be through this this coming spring.
I would say our fiscal health is in really good shape compared to especially a lot of our neighboring states and states across the country that are really struggling. I mean, we're talking about tax cuts while other states are really struggling. So I think we're in a pretty good spot fiscally for the state.
And we are in a good spot fiscally. Jim, you're not the most recent to have it. I came home last Wednesday and got a test, and 4 days to get my test results back. I just came out, 8 days later. And I'm vaccinated, I'm boosted, but I just wanted to give one anecdotal story. In the middle of December, I had a gentleman send me an email that, he was in the hospital and the hospitals weren't crowded, and he just didn't see what all the drama was about. So I spoke with both hospital administrators at Ascension and Community Health. Literally since September, they have been full in many, many, many weeks. Most of those weeks, they've been diverting patients. Breakthrough cases are common, but I can tell you that the second week of December, that at Community Health, 100% of the patients on the third floor, that's the whole floor is COVID. Everybody in the ICU, COVID, 100% unvaccinated. So I would implore, if you're watching, to get the vaccine. It's your choice. If there's sharks in the water, if you want to swim with the sharks, jump right in. But I think anybody in the healthcare industry, at the hospitals at least, that work with it, think that that's a wise choice for you. Again, I supported 101, and it's an individual's choice whether to do it or not. Respect everybody's opinion to do that. But our economy is affected by this because people can't go to work. The restaurant industry is down. The hotel industry is down. People aren't traveling like they once did. So the sooner we go to the other side of this, the better off we're all going to be. I think we've kind of learned to navigate it and manage it and minimize it, mitigate the damages through therapeutics and vaccinations. But it's, if we ever get on the other side of this thing and keep our tax policies in line, Indiana's going to come back like a Indianapolis 500 race car and just roar back.
Thank you. Now for the final part of our afternoon, we'll take a few questions from the chat box and online viewers. We may not have time to get to all of your questions, but please be assured that we will pass them along to the legislators after the session. The first question comes from John Sarah. Can Representative VanNatter and Karickhoff talk about their stance on House Bill 1182, which would require school board candidates to state their party affiliation? Do you think this politicizes education?
Well, I just looked up 1182. It's not moving. And I don't think it's on election and apportionments next week. Is it on the calendar, Heath? Are you checking it out too?
I'm looking for it now.
But I will tell you the genesis of the bill. School board members, if you go to the School Board Association website, you'll see there's an oath, and one of the one of the things in the oath is school board members shall not engage in petty partisan politics. And I think that we've seen education politicized, not just with COVID and people going to school board meetings, just a wide variety. You know, people resist change, and so school boards have passed resolutions and done some things. So there certainly has been a discussion about it. Don't know if it's getting traction in the Senate or not. If there's a bill over there that does that, I know there's a lot of discussion about. My own personal view is we should not mandate a school board member run in a primary to get elected to the school board. I think that I had a school board member from Eastern call. He was very respectful, and he's like, you know, I work for the court system, and I cannot run for school board if I have to declare a political affiliation. So to eliminate a person that wants to serve, I would not, I probably wouldn't support that. But I do think there's nothing wrong if in the fall election, if a person wants to self-identify his affiliation, that would be that person's, he should have that ability, or she should have that ability. The fact of the matter is, if you really drill down and looked at your elected office holders across the state, we're a pretty red state, and most people are going to have the same party affiliation. I think it's a result of activities that happened in previous sessions. And so to mandate it, I would not support a separate primary election for school boards. But I don't think there's even a bill moving now. I just know there's been a lot of discussion about it. A lot of people, I don't know what Representative VanNatter knows about it. I heard there was more going on in the Senate than the House, but I couldn't.
I just pulled up the meeting for next week for elections, and it's not on the agenda, so it doesn't appear to be moving. But I would agree with Mike. I don't think I would support mandating it, but this is simply optional. If you want to put your party affiliation on the ballot, you can.
Well, I don't even know what 1182 says. Maybe 1182 says you have to do it. I don't know. I just know I've thought this through and talked to School Boards Association and different school board members, and that's where I'm at. I don't know what 1182 may mandate it. I don't know that.
Well, one of the things that's gaining a little traction is the comments have been made that they file for the office so late, they really don't know the members that well. And some are suggesting maybe we need to have the school board members file for office at the beginning of the year like most do. Still don't go through a primary, but it gives basically 9-10 months for the people to find out where these school board members stand. But I'm not hearing that much support to declare your party.
I was wrong. This one does mandate it. So I probably wouldn't support that particular bill, but I know those that language, similar language in other bills that didn't mandate it.
Okay, thank you. This question is regarding Senate Bill 284, and question comes from Carrie Cadwell. Mental health and substance issues are at historically unprecedented levels, and with the behavioral health workforce crisis in the state and nationwide. Expansion of telehealth to state-recognized providers can be a critical tool to maximize current workforce capacity. Senate Bill 284 does not currently include that critical expansion piece. Can you speak to your thoughts on addressing Hoosier mental well-being and telehealth?
Well, telehealth is, well, first, I have not seen the bill. We're not done with first readings yet. So that hasn't hit the floor that I'm aware of. I don't remember it even being up for a second reading, but telehealth is something that I think is becoming much more prevalent, depending on the circumstance. But I think you're seeing the legislature move more and more towards that.
The committee report was handed down yesterday, so it'll be up for seconds soon in the Senate. I co-authored the original telehealth bill in the House with Representative Davison a number of years ago. I've been working with the Mental Health Association. There were some rules established that allowed Medicaid coverage for those telehealth appointments for mental health counselors. for a period of time, those payments were allowed, and then those payments got changed in the executive orders and the emergency orders. So I've been working pretty closely to see if we couldn't get an administrative fix to that. I'm unaware that somebody's trying to fix that right now. Could be. I'd be supportive of it if it went on, but really that's probably a long session issue. And it might be one of those lessons we learned in COVID where we kind of deregulated things and help with licensure to help with employees. And maybe a lesson we learned in COVID that we just need to adopt those practices all the time and have less regulation and let people work. So we'll see. I assume you support that based on the question.
All right, thank you. Next question, regarding House Bill 1182, how will parochial schools receiving voucher funds be held accountable to the voter since they do not have a geographical district?
I believe that's the bill we just said that's not getting a hearing.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, that bill's not, doesn't appear to be receiving a hearing.
understood. All right, I do not see any more questions. Looking towards my chamber friends, if we have any more questions. All right, looks like that's it. So we are concluded for today. Thank you to our legislators for their participation and their continued service representing the constituents in Howard County. Please join us for the next Third House session on Friday, February 18th. Thank you and have a wonderful weekend, everyone.